we have now? It's up to you.
Christian
I saw the nod.
Could we lower the shades a little bit?
We certainly can, yeah. I think it was probably more from
trying to pull up
a little bit of breeze.
Okay?
Son? Hello, everybody. I just want to welcome you all. My name is Michelle Talarico. This is my first town hall or meeting after being sworn in, and I'm so thrilled to have utilities here to help me and give us some great information. I just want to thank you all. I assume that you're all living here in District 3 or in the close vicinity. So just one quick thing that I would say beyond the fact that, yes, it is like drinking from a fire hose, but it's really more like 800 fire hoses. I keep saying that it's like sort of learning all of the city stuff in the last 8 weeks has been like taking a little PhD every day, because there's just so much to learn. But I go home incredibly overwhelmed, but also the more important thing is that I'm really exhilarated by all the things that I'm learning. And one quick thing that doesn't really have to do with utilities, but just want to kind of give you an update, and I would encourage you all to reach out if you have questions, if you need anything. Quick story about a woman in my district. She lives off of 25th and Vermejo. She reached out and had a concern about a endless homeless encampment in Fountain Creek behind her. I won't tell you the whole long story, but I will tell you that her first phone call to me was, Michelle, she's 80. She said, I was a lifelong Democrat and I got so disgusted with my party and politics. I decided I'm going to take on neighborhood issues, and I'm going to figure out how to figure out how to help my neighbors, because there's a lot of people, even though I'm 80, I'm in good shape. There's a lot of people that really need help, and they're afraid of their neighborhood. I won't tell you all of the things that we as a city and community have been able to do for her, but I will tell you that she has become so emboldened, as has her entire neighborhood. They've started a neighborhood group with parks. They got that homeless encampment cleaned up. There was a fence put in. I have someone from Parking Enterprises going over this week to make sure that we could put up some no parking signs along the curb of the park just for overnight, because they were also having some people staying overnight. And the most exciting thing is that I have had families from that area that have grandchildren who now feel safe playing in that park again. And that just makes me so happy. And I know that I can't do everything, and I know that this is probably a rare example of successes, but I just thought I would share that with you. I have enjoyed very much hearing from constituents, and it's actually my favorite thing. I'm trying to figure out a way that I can just devote an entire day to that, and I'm sure everybody here agrees they would love to be able to just spend time talking to people, because that's where the real magic is. So I would just like to introduce Travis or Bill.
I was going to have Dave go first.
Okay.
He's still in chair, but I'll hop right in after.
Okay, and just real quick, I want to say one of the most humbling and exciting things about being on city council is also being on the board of directors for utilities. I have learned so much, and I want to say that all of the folks, I'm sure some of them that you're about to hear from, have really been amazing in helping us new councilors really get up to speed, willing to answer any questions that we have. And I so appreciate my co-councilor, Dave Donaldson, who is the board chair, and he is just helping us through some fun topics as we get into the summer. And I'd like to introduce him next. He is District 1.
Yep. So thank you to all of you for being here today, and thank you, Michelle. I'll start off saying, as Michelle said, I'm the councilman from District 1. There's 9 of us on city council, and then we also serve as the board of directors for Colorado Springs Utilities. So the same 9 people. So when you voted for someone for city council, you also voted for one of the new board members on utilities. District 1 that I represent, it starts way up there in Peregrine, right below the Air Force Academy, goes all the way down through Garden of the Gods, Pleasant Valley, and stops kind of just above Highway 24. And then it goes over through UCCS, University Park, that part of the city also. So that's the part I represent. There's six councilmen and women who represent those distinct districts in the city, and then there's 3 that represent the entire city at large. And those 3, one of them lives right here in this neighborhood, that's David Lineweber, and the other 2, and they're all new, and you just elected them in this last election. So David lives right here. There is, who's the other, Brian Risley and Lynette Crow-Iverson. So that makes up the 9 of us. And Michelle, she was just elected, but that was unusual. That was because Richard Scorman stepped down, and then Stephanie Fortune was appointed, and then Stephanie withdrew because she was very ill, and unfortunately she's passed away. And Michelle was elected. So Michelle will have the enjoyable experience of running again in 2 years. She won't get the full 4-year experience.
Can't wait.
Yeah. And so as far as Colorado Springs Utilities goes, as Michelle said, I was elected by the other board members once they were, they won their elections. And at our first meeting, that's one of the pieces of business we take care of. What do we do as the board of directors? Really, we look out for the citizens' interests and try to maintain that balance between good rates, right, stable rates, reliability, and then anticipating the growth that the city is going to experience and being ready for that, right? So recently, every 3 months on utilities, we will vote electric cost adjustment and gas cost adjustment, because it's kind of like if you're going to buy the gasoline for your neighbor and he pays for it, and then at the end of that 3 months, you have to settle up, like you either you overpaid a little bit or you underpaid, and we correct that every 3 months. So we just did that a couple days ago, and we maintained or lowered the rates on both gas and electric, the underlying utilities, infrastructure, that cost, and then the actual cost for the gas or electricity. So that's a lot of words, but what it means is your rates went down a little bit. And we take that very seriously. I mean, we really seriously try to make that happen if we can, but at the same time, there's a certain band. If we've under-collected, and we have to raise the rates a little bit to get back to balance. That's one of the things we've done recently. That was actually very recently. Other topics we're going to talk about today, but it's really going to be Travis. We're going to let the CEO, he's the real expert. We'll talk a little bit about Drake. We'll talk a little bit about some updates to our energy plan, the clean heat plan, and I think Travis will explain how, like when you hear about the Drake shutdown, I mean, that isn't like just a good idea that came out of Colorado Springs Utilities. That is being driven by decisions that your legislators in the state make. They tell us we have to achieve certain goals in pollution, essentially, or they're going to come take over. So we don't have free reign down here. Does that make sense? We have to work within those regulations by the state. And then we're also going to have a water update. And boy, it has rained a lot lately, so that's great. It reminds me of 20 years ago. So I'm not going to go any further unless you have any questions. I'm going to let the experts really give you more detailed information, but happy to answer more general questions or the city council side. Any questions for me? If not, I will hand this over to our CEO, Travis Dean.
And I'm not a real good singer, so usually I'm loud enough, but if somebody in the back can't hear me, I do better having my hands. I'm a little bit more hands-on. So welcome. I think it's awesome that each of you really, care enough about to come to these. It takes time out of your schedule to be involved. We do like involvement. We're a community-owned utility. And I think the more, we hear from constituents, our ratepayers, those, it helps us get better. So thank you, first and foremost, for being here tonight. So with that, Drake, Drake is a question that keeps coming up, and some of you may have been in some of the meetings when we've had about the future of Drake, the decommissioning of it, what those new units over there, look like, and when they start, making that revenue for us, for our ratepayers. So that's all in motion right now. The decommissioning is happening, and those units are actually generating power today for us. So they've all been commissioned, and they're spinning, and they're making that revenue and continuing to make sure we have reliability for you. So it's very exciting. I look at those as great assets for you as our customers, for the next 25, 30 years. So they're good assets for us to have in the community, and they're going to pay for themselves dearly. The decommissioning of it, you guys have a phenomenal community up here that we're hosting this in today, and a lot of you may not live here. You live, District 3 is a very large district. But it's a great area to have one of these, and you can see, if you're on the perimeter of this, you can see Drake. Drake's been a center point, for the community for years. And back then, you didn't have the best transmission or distribution to get power to your homes. So everybody built around power plants. So, communities built around where your power came from. Well, those times have changed. We have better reliability, we have more technology. So a lot of people want to see these plants, to look differently and to transition into the next era, and that's what we're proud to be a part of. So it is being decommissioned right now. So you're going to see activity. So every time you go across Cimarron Bridge, you're going to see things start to disappear a little bit. You're going to see things start to change almost daily. We're even taking time-lapse pictures, just to sort of show what that transformation looks like. But a lot of exciting things, with that, and we're doing it to most care of the community. Some of you may live in that impacted area, of Drake and those areas. Everything we've done when it comes into the contractor, that we actually chose, they had to actually have experience in metropolitan areas, downtown, dust mitigation, noise mitigation, all these things to be as least intrusive as we possibly can to you and the community. So, but the footprint's going to change. It's going to look a lot different there, and excited, to continue to see that downtown area continue to grow, which is all in this area. So those two things are really big. Those units were basically a vision back in 2020. So in 2020, we had what's called an electric integrated resource plan. Really, that's our long-term plan. How are we going to get power, generate power, and build in the future? Well, in 2020, that was when those were identified as a future asset, and then our teams, our great teams at Colorado Springs Utilities, put that into play. We got them built, the coal pile was there, and then within 2 years, really, you can see that transformation happening. It was a great win for us. Well, recently, every year things change. Your needs change within your families, bigger house, smaller house, different types, more cars, less cars, new cars. Well, utilities is the same way. So every year we do is called a true-up, and that's really what we just did, is took a look at the community needs. Did our last plan meet the new needs? And we found it didn't. We had to reevaluate it again and add some more, generation mix into that. So that's what you see in our utility board, of course, that Dave and Michelle is part of. They put those in place and they voted on it last week. So really what that means, now we're going to the next phase of our next vision of how do we get more power into Colorado Springs. It's very balanced. The old and out, you don't want all your eggs in one basket, we don't either when it comes into generation. So in this IRP, Integrated Electric Resource Plan, you're going to see wind, solar, battery, renewables and technology is those two, the battery technology and the renewables. But you're also going to see another 350 megawatts of natural gas, to continue to maintain that reliability, for the community. And where those are going to be at, we don't know yet. We have to look at our gas system. They're going to probably be more on the southeastern side, or could be down at our Clear Springs Ranch, which is down here between here and Pueblo. But so what you've seen there was us maintaining reliability, which is very important, for us. I always tell everybody, I don't think any of you are going to raise your hand and volunteer for voluntary outages. If you do, let me know, because you'll be the first I've met. Because they're never when you want them. So reliability is always going to be at the foremost of what we do at Colorado Springs Utilities. Then the next thing's cost. And I think Mr. Donaldson, mentioned that a little bit, is how do we do these things and manage costs in the process? How do we find ways to maintain reliability, keep up with some of the regulation and some of the things with some of the decarbonization requirements we have, and do it the most cost-effective way. So that's built into that. The next thing being environmental stewards. You know, that next thing that we've heard from our customers, okay, after you meet these first two, now how do we do it the most environmental way we can? So that's really, you know, how those three things sort of stack up. So that's exciting for us, you know. We're good at building things. You know, that's sort of what we do. You know, there are a lot of things I'm not good at, but I'm good at building things. We can say that. I've got great people around us to continue to build, and it's exciting for the future. You're going to see that continue to grow. So that was a big thing. You've also seen a lot of things in, whether it's the paper, there's different things that you've been to utility about water. You know, water is one of those that I can't build. You know, nobody really figured out. I mean, we can make water, we can treat water, but we can't make water. We can move water, we can purchase water for you, you know, as our customers, and we can move it from a long ways to get it there. But water is going to always continue to be something that we always have to just manage. We have to understand it, you know, where we get it, how we get it, how do we maintain it, you know, how do we treat it. But it's something that it's going to have to be a partnership. It's going to have to be all of us, because we're going to have to continue to, you know, do things around programs around making sure that we conserve what we got. You know, making sure that we're not, you know, using more than what's available at certain times. So you're always going to see water as a conversation point, you know, within utilities, and also conservation programs and looking at incentives and ways to help us conserve water. And you guys are doing as a community, you know, the last several years we've grown, but our water needs really hasn't went up. They've done a really good job maintaining, and that's not Colorado Springs Utilities, that's you guys as customers and ratepayers being mindful and understanding what that water resource is. So those types of topics are always going to be, you know, at the forefront. And I think Dave, you know, mentioned, you know, expert. The good thing is none of us are really experts at anything. I'm not, but I've got enough people around me. We're all good at something. So, you know, I'm very proud of the Colorado Springs utility staff, which a lot of them here today supporting it. And we all lean on each other, and we make a very effective team, I think, you know, how we continue to move forward. But a lot of this is today is me not, you know, preaching to you, so I'm going to start backing up and shut up. I'm going to really want to start hearing what your questions are, you know, concerns, clarity and stuff, because I can guess what you want to hear, and I hit some big topics there. And actually, I'll touch on one, because one of the folks that live up here is a big part of our fiber program, the fiber telecommunications. You know, that's another big thing that we're doing, and it's getting exciting. You know, we've lit up here lately. So just like those units are starting to make power, our fiber is starting to, you know, transport data. So another exciting project that we really need for the future of utilities as we transform. You know, whether you get into rooftop solar, which there's some in this community, distributed generation, electric vehicles, which they're like little rolling, you know, battery banks as they are. We have to be able to see that and help you manage that, and we need, you know, fiber to be able to do it. So that's another great program. Well, with that, that's some quick hot topics. Then from there, I just really want to get into this conversation and questions, and then I'll start pulling in people as needed. So, sound good? All right. Well, who's the lucky one for the first question? That's always man, he was locked and loaded. Go ahead, sir.
That's Jack.
Yeah.
Correct me where I'm wrong. Those are gas turbine, jet engines, direct drive, something for more electricity. Are you recapturing the heat that comes off of that in the secondary recovery of heat, boiling water?
So HRSGs, good question. So basically that heat capture and getting those. What we've got, we're limited on space here, but as we go to relocate those, that is our long-term plan, is capturing that heat. For us to be able to put these units in on site, we were limited in space. So the reason we're able to generate power and bring Drake down at the same time and maintain that stabilization is because they're there at that site. But you're exactly right, that heat capture system is our long-term plan. So when we move those, at some point, we will either be looking at 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 for that HRSG, you know, that heat capture system to maximize it even more.
I guess that makes the natural gas you're using more efficient generating electricity. It will eventually.
Yes, sir. Yes, it does.
I guess the second one. Are you able to use any of the turbines and generators that are existing in Drake for anything?
No, unfortunately, they've gotten to the point where they've just ran their end of life. And I know Drake, you know, a lot of people thought it was really for a carbon reduction target, but Drake was really just a financial decision. They're great units, the city built around them, you know, they're phenomenal assets that have been for many years. But every plant has an end of life, you know, and I think they've just really met that where they don't make much power for what it takes to keep them operational. So I think I call it harvesting. I think we've harvested that asset as much as we can, and it's time to move on to the next phase. But it's neat that you actually know that capture system, so I'm gonna have to give you an award if I can figure out that today.
One of the problems, I used to be a thermal analysis.
Okay,
And I like the shape of the Drake power plant.
okay,
I like the blue panels sticking up in the air.
Yeah.
And I like the steam coming in.
yeah,
So we're gonna lose the steam too, right?
yes, sir, yeah.
I'm
But
not-
whenever you want, we'll take you down to Nixon, you can see all you want, so just let us know, and we'll get you down there and you can continue to
Those
see.
are all my questions, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Travis,
Yeah.
you might point out that down at Front Range, we do recapture.
Yeah, Front Range, we definitely have that technology in place, and we would have, you know, at some point, you know, here as well, we will with these gas, but our big sort of workhorse right now in our fleet is our Front Range gas plant, which has all of the technology when it comes to the capture system. So I've seen a couple of hands, I'll hit you, sir, first, real quickly.
Just at a very high level, you guys go through your presentations. So with the integration of renewables and then the increased reliability of natural gas to backstop it, I'm curious what CSU is doing to increase the deliverability of the natural gas, because it's going to be called on more and more real time. So I don't know if you're developing natural gas storage above ground, below ground.
A little bit of everything. So actually I had a good meeting this morning, and some of this we're going to actually be presenting to our utility board in a couple different menus coming up in July. Some of this, we have a lot of contract negotiations out there right now, so we don't want to get too public yet until we find the best deal and the best solution, you know, next stage for our ratepayers. But we continue to look at that. The whole Front Range is gas constrained. You know, the whole front, if you look at a gas map when it comes to infrastructure, if you get probably, say, eastern Kansas that way, it's a spider web. There's gas infrastructure everywhere. You can get it about everything. If you look at that map, a lot of them are public, you can find them all over the place. If you just Google, you know, gas transmission, you know, system, it'll show it. This side, not as much. You know, this is where you start really running into, it's that transmission, how do you move it? Then how do you store it? You know, we do have some storage ownership in some there, which is more cavitational storage. We're looking at liquefying and storing. We're looking at additional capacity, working with either Kinder Morgan and other ones to try to how to bring some more gas into the area. Because we definitely know it's not only that, it's even residential heat. So as things continue to grow, we have to be able to move and meet that capacity. We do have some reductions, you know, within the clean heat that we have to always manage what those are and meet those requirements. And we will, but our first and foremost is what does our customers want? You know, I know the whole question around, you know, whether it's electrification or not is, as long as we can give you choice, we will always give you choice. You know, I've had a few people, if you've seen the things, stickers on people's trucks that said, you'll take my gun for my cold dead hands. Well, I've had a lot of people tell me you're gonna take my gas stove for my cold dead hands. So I know that's a passion for those, and our customers are still wanting gas. So we're always looking at multiple options with that.
Thank you.
Good question. I've seen some hands. Yes, ma'am.
With the city expanding, what's the long-term vision for the Drake site? What's it going to look like?
So for right now, our first goal is to get our new generation on site, and we're doing that now, and to safely bring down the other infrastructure. And we're going to have some souvenirs, I think, too, for Drake too, so we can
Yeah, I'll
let
take
you
about
go.
10,000 tons of steel.
We sold to scrap already, but I'm sure we can find, you give us this lady over here, we can find something for you. But as we get that safely down, you know, we always continue to evaluate it. Then those units are there and they're still generating. We have a lot of work to do before we can move those. The good thing with these units is they're modular. So in other words, if better technology comes out, we can sell these. So we can actually sell them, bolt them, and move them. So we can move them for our own needs somewhere else in the system, or we can move these to sell. So long term, we're going to always continue to evaluate is at the right time, you know, can and should we move these for this site and do something else with it at that point. It's going to be less obstructive. You know, I mean, I like power plants too, so I agree, but not everybody does. You know, so they don't see what I see, and you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, as they say. But But we're gonna continue to assess what that site looks like, and at that point, when we're ready to vacate it completely, then we're gonna turn it over to city process when it comes into what's the best use for this site long-term. But for the foreseeable future, we're gonna have some generation there, but we're always gonna have substations. So the wires are still gonna be there because we still have people that need those. So I wanna make sure there's no confusion that it's gonna be completely gone. We have substations there, we have one of our fiber huts. So we're always gonna have CSU infrastructure on there, but, we're gonna be vacating a pretty good little
It's going
piece
to be a
of it.
smaller footprint.
Very much
Yeah.
smaller and less vertical, not as much in the air,
Yeah,
yeah.
so parking lot.
There's many things, I've heard all kinds of examples. But it'll be a community process, and you guys in District 3 will be part of that process. You're one of our key stakeholders. That is your neighbor, so once we get into that public process, you're gonna hear from the team that's actually putting this on today, helping, get opinions and ideas on that. It's community. I mean, we are community. CSU is a community as well as that site, so. Yes, sir?
So Nixon and Front Range, they're base load units, and the ones you have down there are pretty much peakers, CTs. Are you going to maintain any of the peakers on the system to try to blend with the variability of your wind and solar? As you know, you can't ramp up and down your base load units because they're thermal.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work to be able to ramp them up. You guys are some educated crowd. I'm gonna have to start bringing some prizes. They have good questions. Front Range has a large ramp rate. It can go down to, 220 up to, let's say, 500. So it can swing quite a bit pretty quickly. That's what gas gives you over coal. Coal, you gotta put pulverizers on and take them off. You gotta do some things there that they're not as quick when it comes to the base load. These units here, the old analogy of, the peakers, you are limited on number of starts and how much you can run them. These you can't. These are literally jet engines. You can start and stop as many as you need to, and they're fairly quick. You're talking, 5 to 10 minutes of start, then ramp up, fairly quick, 15 to 20 minutes. So these will be able to help chase renewables, I call it, that bridge, maintaining reliability, but bringing an influx in of renewables, because there's times renewables is very cheap. The thing is, they're not around the clock.
I guess my question is, are you going to continue to have peakers like that on the system as part of the integrated research?
Yes, short answer is yes. And that's what this other 350, we're looking for flexible power and making sure when we make decisions for the long-term benefit of the community, that we're bringing all technology in we can. So these are actually can run on hydrogen, these new units as well, so they can burn hydrogen, natural gas, of course, and we actually have fuel oil as that reserve third, fuel type that they can run, which is great, when it gets into having to curtail gas, that's what, like a physical hedge. So that is a physical thing we have on site in that fuel that if we have to manage costs or do things, we can actually run them on fuel oil. And just like you guys do, if you have, some of your own type of fuel or different tanks, you buy it off season. So, we fill these in the summertime when cost is down, then we're able to run those, whenever we have some gas, curtailment problems throughout the year, as we continue to grow our supply as well as our storage. So, good question. Yes, sir, who's next?
I have a more general question rather than specific.
Okay.
Utilities in the past has made, and you're not to blame, you weren't around,
Yeah.
has made $200 million mistakes. For example, trying to prop up a coal plant with that, will save you $200 million scheme. And there have been other schemes as well that have failed. And I guess I would ask you, and you covered a whole lot of ground, what in the future scares you the most?
Oh, man, I'll keep you up all night, so I don't sleep much anyway, so I don't want to scare you too bad with this.
So, you have some concerns, and what's at the top?
Probably the biggest concern is that we're moving so fast with, what our wants are. Our wants is all the same. We want to be a very environmental country. We want our kids and grandkids. I mean, I do as well. I'm a big nature lover as well. We all want that, but it's got to be at a pace that we can maintain reliability. And at times, I think as a country, we may be running too quick. So what my job is to make sure I put things in place where I can meet these reliability, meet those targets that sort of get there. that's sort of the one, you know, on the electric side is a little bit of concern with me. The second one is the misunderstanding around gas. You know, when it comes to residential gas, it's nice to have, you know, flexibility. Just like I said, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket on generation. Same way when it comes into some of the heating stuff. So I hope we use some logic and common sense, you know, at state level as we start looking. I mean, I tell everybody, you know, this is just Travis talking here, but you know, if you look at Interstate 25, there's a lot more pollutants on that road than there is in your gas stoves at the house or even within my plants. I think there's some things we can do sooner to find some of these environmental improvements for the state, you know, without jumping in the next thing. And water, you know, water is one of those, it's a crystal ball thing for us. We live in the, you know, to me, one of the prettiest pieces of country that I've ever seen, you know, this area. That's why I'm sure we're all here and we all stay here. But the challenge is, you know, we have sun a lot, we have warm wind, we have, so water's gonna, and it doesn't scare me, we just have to know that that's an area we have to always be monitor of and move through. The good thing is what you guys paid me to do is carry those worries and risk and make sure me and my team have plans around it and we do the best we can with that. And you know, when it gets in, you talk about, you know, some of the mistakes and stuff, you know, when you look back, everything's made in space of time. Is you're making it what you know today. You know, and there is going to be some things that if I would have known, especially I would probably be rich right now. If I'd have known 20 years ago what I know today, I'd have probably invested money in some different areas. But we try not to. We really try to proof everything out, do everything we can to make sure we're making non-biased decisions, you know, for our ratepayers' money and do everything we can. I treat every dollar of yours like it's mine. I mean, I do everything I can to make sure that whatever I'm investing in, that I have done all the stuff, my team's done all the stuff we can to hammer out any possible errors. But it's a good question, though.
Well, your predecessors would have said exactly what you said.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we are human. We
Yeah.
make mistakes.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, we sure try not to, but it does happen. Yes, ma'am.
I understand the broadband office is going to receive $826 million for broadband equity. Are you going to seek any of those federal taxpayer dollars for CSU? Or are the broadband leasing groups going to seek any of those dollars?
Yeah, we actively look at it. The good thing for you, our fiber.
I didn't really hear the question, and I
Okay.
don't think I understood it, so could you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, and yeah.
I think I heard you repeat it.
I'm going to introduce this guy first here real quick. So you guys are very fortunate. This young man.
Or cursed.
Yeah, this young man actually lives in District 3. So I told him I was going to let him participate as a constituent until a question came up. So I'm just pulling him back into CSU time now so he can touch on some of the grants.
I was going to ask tough questions since my boss and boss's boss are here, but yeah, thanks for that one. So, quick recapture, $126 million in actually one federal grant package.
$826.
$826,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a little more. There's a few different packages out there. It's actually a few million if you total it all up. Are we going to pursue any of that grant funding? So I'm going to back up just a little bit if you'll allow me a moment of latitude. The reason we're putting in this fiber project for our utility has nothing to do with broadband at all. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because all those things we talked about with energy, the challenges with water, the challenges with gas. We know we're going to need better technology to monitor our systems and operate our systems so we can deliver those utilities as efficiently and as effectively as possible. To put in that fiber infrastructure across this entire city, not even our service territory, but just the city of Colorado Springs, about $450 million. Now, it came straight out of your pocket and my pocket as ratepayers to do that capital project. What our leadership allowed us to do is look at a different model where putting the pipe in the ground is really the most expensive part. Moving dirt in Colorado is very pricey. The number of fibers you put in there doesn't change the total cost very much. So whether it's the 12 fibers we might need just for utility purposes, or if we put in enough fibers for the utility, for the city, for an internet provider like Ting, and maybe a couple more, and maybe a cellular telephone provider and a few others, we throw in 864 fibers in one conduit instead of 12, the cost differential isn't much. So we went from a $450 million project to a $600 million project to do all that extra stuff I just talked about. But then the idea is we have an asset now that we can lease out for use by others. And on separate fibers, completely separate physical infrastructure, cannot commingle with our operational traffic, that we lease this stuff out. If you look at Ting's SEC filings, you'll see a number around $593 million that they're paying us over the next 25 years to lease, to be the first lessee on that network. So we've now paid for almost the entire capital cost of the project, well above the $150 million differential, just to get that in the ground. So then the question is, should we pursue other sources of funding? We are. So I think that as the assistant grant writer when it comes to all things fiber, I think I've written 3 grant proposals so far. A new grant proposal window opened yesterday that I will write when I get back from vacation. I'm taking off for some time off for a couple of weeks. And I'm going to write that grant proposal as well. Those are federal dollars that have already been appropriated. They're going to go to somebody. We thought it'd be worthwhile to have some of that benefit here to our ratepayers in the city of Colorado Springs. I heard the questions earlier, so I know I'm dealing with a pretty educated audience. There's some strings that come with those federal dollars. So one of the last pieces of analysis that we'll look at is the money coming in the door worth what we're going to add to cost to spend that federal money? Because it's going to come with Davis-Bacon requirements, it's going to come with NEPA requirements. It takes us about 2 years to go through the environmental process for a project we're already doing. So that'll be the final step should we be successful. My expectation is, just working very closely with the Colorado Broadband Office, that we will be successful in getting money from them.
Do you know how much?
How much we'll get? No, not at all. Yeah, they have not yet awarded anything that I'm aware of for the applications that we've submitted, but I do expect that we're going to get some. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for indulging me. Now you had a choice for me to finish.
Sure, that was good, thanks.
What other questions?
My interest, or not my only interest, I'm interested in all of this, and I can't even really formulate a question because to me this is such a big issue, and I'm not even sure how to ask the question. But what about water? I mean, we annex areas, we're out don't use any water, but we're going to annex this bunch of houses. Then all of a sudden we've got a lot of water, which is an anomaly in the recent past. Are we doing anything about storage? How are we trying to manage that beyond the fact that the water compact from 29 is a mess? And I know that they redid some of that, but I don't think they redid the amount of water that we're obligated to send downstream,
Yep.
which was the way I understand it, a hideously misinformed choice, and they've never gone back and fixed it because it's to everybody else's benefit. So I don't know I don't know if there's a solution.
It's a great question. So water, so we have water rights. So and they're all different. You know, this one here is local water, which is our most seasoned water. In this area here, like Pikes Peak area, this area here. And what we're able to do is take it, use it, but not store it in some aspects, and it's got to move. Some of our storage, I'm sure you guys have been to the Catamounts, North and South Catamount, Rampart, you guys have seen all these. Those are storage units we actually utilize that comes all the way from the Blues, the West Slope, some of our intermountain, diversions. We have, have you guys seen Montgomery Reservoir when you go over Hoosier Pass, like into Breckenridge? It's the real pretty lake down at the bottom as you're heading up over the pass going down into Bragg. It's down on the left. That's called our Montgomery Reservoir. That's the one that we're first trying to get permitted now. So we're going through the process to back that dam up and make it taller to be able to capture more storage, because some years, big snow years, we can't actually hold all of our water rights because we can't store that water. So we are looking at storage on that one for sure. We continue to put money into our local system, when it comes into water. That's why if you've heard, the free fishing up on Catamounts that are lower than that, is because we have a ton of dam work we're going to do on those. Two things. One, we want to maintain our assets because something we haven't done in 80 years, plus. So we got to keep up with that because we want our reservoirs to be healthy and hold water, and also for safety. If you don't want any dams up here to fail. I'll just, won't get into scaring you, but you don't want any dams that a lot of water's going to go somewhere. So we maintain those dams and make sure we do a lot of inspections. So we're always putting money in this local system. But what we are investing in is our infrastructure to treat these heavy years of rain. So the way this exchanges, like, very good questions too. The local water comes in, if I can capture my diversions and get it to my treatment plants, then it's mine to use. If it comes by, then it's gone. You know, I can't really store that. So, but if I'm treating local water on these heavy rains, I'm not pulling on my reservoirs. So it's an anomaly that I'm still worth maintaining the local system instead of pulling from my reservoirs. So we're always doing infrastructure upgrades. We did a big, so the Mesa water treatment plant, if you guys have seen up off of Mesa there, where our conservation center is, we just expanded it to be able to treat more water quickly when it comes to the system and have that operational. So we're doing everything we can to continue to build infrastructure and maintain that water and have that treatment. The next process, I'll probably tap on Dave or Michelle to talk about. The annexation is not a CSU thing.
No, we don't.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, but if they
all
could,
part and parcel of the same thing.
oh, yeah.
I just hear people, whose hair is on fire about that. And I think, well, that's, I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm assuming somebody knows what they're doing when they say that that's the thing that they can allow for. But it is confusing sometimes to think, well, historically, we are not a wet plant.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm used to living in that, and I'm that kind of environment. Before I moved here, I did too. So, I don't find it real challenging, but I'm astonished by, all the green grass and all the stuff that people do here that doesn't make any sense to me. But, I mean, I know that people are loath to ever tell them anything to do.
Yeah, and we continue to educate, and this is that Mesa Center, if you haven't been there, we got
That's my
great.
favorite, one of my favorite places. I go
Yeah.
there once a
Okay.
month usually over the summer just to see what's growing and what's.
Well, you've seen our experts there, and they can actually help with what type of grass, what type of turf, to be able to try to continue to manage that. And, the water ordinance, if you guys have heard that, is really a planning target for us that was sort of went through city council process. And really, that's what we sort of manage our system to now. It gives us a long-term plan. So my job is continue to find ways as our city leaders make decisions, whether it's annexation or other decisions. My job is to figure out how to make that work without, and we do, and we're continuing very aggressive, everything for Southern. There's no, when I talked earlier, there's no fear when it comes to water, just an understanding. We just kind of understand what we got, how to manage it, how to use it. And if you look at that use curve, it's been very flat. People want to live here and move here, but I understand where you're at, and it's a problem not easily solved. So we're continuing to focus on and work on it, but.
I moved from San Diego, that's how.
Okay, yeah.
And I lived there for 50 years.
Yeah.
And, I lived there when it was small and manageable. And one of the reasons that I moved out of there was because, one of their taglines for recycling water is toilet to tap, which I think is a poor one. But,
We was gonna use that here, that's probably not a good one.
And so,
yeah.
the thing is, your water's been toilet to tap like 50 times by the time it hits San Diego. And everybody knows if you ever have a quick order, it's
sir.
99. So, one of the reasons I just have existential dread living there. Because one of these days, I'm gonna turn on the tap and nothing's gonna come out. And it will eventually, probably, happen to some degree or another. I mean, the salinization plant in Carlton doesn't make much of a jump, something right there. So I don't know, I guess I have a sort of an underlying fear of not jumping from the frying pan into the fire, but I'm thinking this is a very, very similar climatic situation. And I think, I don't want to see it happen again.
Yeah, listen, absolutely.
So I would tell you, like, the board, Colorado Springs Utilities Board and City Council, we take very, very seriously water and looking forward and making wise decisions today. One thing that's worth remembering is Colorado Springs, with a significant population growth over the last 30 years, uses the same amount of water we do now. We did then, we use that amount today.
That's good.
That's very good. And one of the ways that happened is Colorado Springs Utilities changed the rate structure for water. And so you get, up to a certain point at one rate. And then there's a second tier, I think it's 25% higher. The third tier is 50% higher. And that has worked very effectively. And we have rebate programs for people who change their shower heads and all these kind of things. And so we're always trying to think, how can we save more or encourage people to do the right thing? And then the annexations, it's worth just repeating that when the board at utilities said that the amount water annexation meets the requirements of that water ordinance, which we recently passed, that's just a numbers thing. Doesn't mean we approve the annexation. Now it has to go over to city council, and we look at it through a whole different set of criteria. But on the pure numbers, it did meet the water ordinance. And so there's a matter of fairness too.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I heard that the usage hadn't increased, but I didn't realize it was a 30-year arc. So that is really encouraging, because it's a huge jump in population with that.
It is, and that's one thing on council, you don't want to assume that everything's going to be exactly the same, like, well, our cars back in the 70s got 10 miles to the gallon. That's just the way it's always going to be. We can only have this number of cars.
Right.
Because, you know, humans are clever and creative, and I think we can be smart about what we do. So, I won't get into the annexation stuff, because we'll go down a
Well, and that's just one, just one of the things. I mean, it's not a big issue for me, but I just know you keep hearing people talking about it. How can they do that?
Yeah. Well, and another thing, which this is all just like a little piece of the puzzle, but Colorado has never used all the water which we are entitled to from the compact.
Okay.
Not even close. Like, I don't even think we've ever hit half of what we're entitled to. The states to the south, California, Arizona, they're using much more water than they're entitled to. And so that's why even that recent agreement
Right.
with the federal government, they're the ones who take the hit.
Right. I know
So the savings, the states up here, Colorado has done a very good job. And another thing to remember, now I'm having flashbacks of the whole water ordinance, is that 90% of our water is used by agriculture.
Right.
So when you try to squeeze all the savings out of
Me.
Colorado Springs, and your neighbors,
Yeah.
you can only make so much of a dent. And of that 10%, is it 10 or 12, I can't remember, it's right around there, that we use in the cities. Only half of that is residential, maybe it's 60%. And then only a slice of that is outside. And so there is going to be encouragement to be even smarter with our landscaping, right? To use plants and things, types of grasses that do well here. Colorado Springs is going to, we're trying to do it with the carrot,
Right.
and not the stick.
Well,
Does
that's
that-
all,
does that
yeah, that's
partially
all
answer
good
your question?
information, because I didn't really realize that we don't use all the water a lot.
Not even
I just,
close.
the data point that I switched to my mind was when they did the compact in what, 29?
You're close. If it's not 29, you're very
It was
close.
like a year after like the most water that had ever flowed through the river, and they sold a quantity instead of a percentage. And I thought, well, who signed that contract?
I have my little notebook with my numbers in it, which I don't have with me here, but Colorado, the highest year of Colorado use was, I don't
Not
know,
even
15, 20 years
flow.
ago.
Yeah.
And our usage has been going
Right.
down in
I'm
Colorado.
not talking about usage, I'm talking about just the flow
Flow.
of the water
Yeah.
that went through, that you could say, well, we'll sell you this much.
Yeah.
And we said, well, we'll sell you this many acre feet instead of this percentage of what the flow is, which would have made more sense to me, but I don't know how to do it. So I'm probably showing my ignorance by.
No, you're
not
showing,
understanding
actually, you're
how
very
to decide
educated, so you've got some great questions. The
They're
thing
used-
is,
They're used in terms like peakers.
Yeah,
and You're
yeah.
talking about river compacts. So
yeah,
this is not a normal sampling of citizens at all, so I'm going to step out.
but you're right, and they're reevaluating that now, and that's some of what we do with our governance group is trying to get involved with some of that. Is because just like Dave was saying is, when you split that up, Colorado I think has done a lot around managing its use, and the lower three haven't as much. So they've committed to actually start doing some reduction of their usage. Because what happens, a lot of that water actually ties to electric too. So a lot of the hydro between here and out west, we use that for base load for the system. So it gets it to the point where it was actually not only impacting, whether it's Lake Mead and all the numbers coming down, but it's actually impacting electric cost. Because without there, you gotta improve your planning numbers and actually care, because you don't have that firming, you know, type of power behind, so, no, great question.
Do you guys talk about this stuff and like, do you have open meetings that, because I really feel like I need an education on a lot of how this all goes together. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot today.
So all of our stuff is open, you know, so whether it's utility board, some of our committee meetings, if you go to our site, our team here will get you the information. Look at those agendas, sometimes those are definitely on there. The water conservation has a ton of information.
Right.
So go inside there, any of them are what I would call experts, not me, when it comes to this. They will grab somebody and definitely spend, they love it. You know, so you'll make their day if you go in there, they'll spend as much
Oh,
time.
does it?
And yeah, so I mean, that's another great avenue as well. Anything that the board is going to see, is always our utility board meetings, is that third Wednesday of the month, you know, at 1 o'clock. We have, you can monitor through Teams or in person. And sometimes we do talk about water. We, about every other month, some months, every month, we do a water update there. Where we have one of our water planners do an update for our utilities board. That's actually great information.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of avenues. Yes, sir.
I was up in Longmont when they created their communication utility. And I know there was, working with some subcontractors, there was a lot of issue with the installation, going through people's yards, disturbing landscaping. I was curious how it was working out in this first phase up north with that installation.
Well, we do everything we can on the restoration side when it comes through some of the access. We've had some hiccups, not gonna lie, you know, some, especially when it comes into people's private water systems, their irrigation system, those aren't marked, you know, through 811 dig. So we've had some of those. We continually improve. But, you know, if there's ever a problem, we tell everybody to just call. You know, we send people out, but we always try to leave it in an unbelievably good shape, you know, anytime we restore. But just like everything else, when you're building, you know, a full city out, we have had some mistakes that, you know, we've had to have customers call us for various reasons. But our team really, when it comes into it, has done a good job of managing those. But we do make sure, no matter what, when we leave there, it's gonna be right. If it's not, we
It's
come
gonna
back.
be coming down this way, so
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's a
Yeah.
learning process.
Well, the good thing, I'm guessing this way's gonna be taken care of, because the guy that's running it lives here. So I'm guessing he's not showing favoritism, but he's sure not gonna shortchange you either.
My prime contractor and my owner's rep and everybody know I'm terrified of coming in this neighborhood because I know I'm gonna be seeing it every day in front of me. But we try and be very proactive. We get in front, 72 hours in front of any construction. We do door hangers in every door. It says, here's what we're doing. We're either gonna be front of yard, back of yard, overhead, underground. Here's the number to call, 4800 if you have an issue. The crews take before and after photos of everything that they do, so the landscape is restored to its original condition. And as Travis mentioned, where the hiccups absolutely, particularly coming out of the winter time, because you hit a lot of those irrigation systems in the winter, you don't know it until Mother's Day weekend when everybody turns their sprinklers on. And you get 400 phone calls at once, it's actually 167 in a day. And so that actually took a couple weeks to fix all that. But yeah, I can say very confidently now, we have repaired all of those. And then just working on other issues as they come up. So it's actually going pretty well.
Yeah, and if I could add one more thing, you know, on city council, we get all kinds of, I don't call them complaints. We get alerted to a lot of stuff. And multiple times it wasn't CSU or the companies we have hired that had hit something. It was other private companies that are also upgrading their fiber now, like Comcast or Underline or one of them. So there was actually quite a few of those.
I think we got like 10 companies right now doing work in town right now, and like Mr. Donaldson said, you know, we are guilty by association, you know, since we televise and communicate, and there definitely is some of that. But another good question. Any other question? If not, I would like to definitely turn it over to Ms. Michelle. Yes, ma'am.
So I do have a basic question. All the other questions are very technical, but you mentioned infrastructure and improving infrastructure. I live in a community, Pleasant Valley, where our homes are 50s and 60s. And I've got overhead lines, and some of us were without electricity back in December a couple of years ago for several weeks. What does that look like on burying our lines? Are there grants available for that in our community? What do we need to do?
We continue to look at that. So believe it or not, we're one of the top utility companies in the country with underground overhead ratio. So I'm sorry you're the one that's not, but about 72% of ours is underground already. So what we do is as we replace, we try to go underground where it makes sense. But we, just like we talked about Drake earlier, I think the question came through, is we want to harvest all that, and so we're not, going underground is 2 to 3 times more expensive. So, you know, we want to do it the right time after we utilize those assets. What we are doing, I've asked the team this last year, is take a budget, you know, and it depends on what we have available if we go through the budget process, to start taking a look at our top reliability issues and putting funding where it's non-discriminatory, the area. We go after those top areas that's had the most reliability issues, and we start doing some undergrounding. If we don't, we're never going to get there. So it's not going to be as fast as carte blanche, you know, over the next few years we're going to underground everything, but we're using data to drive undergrounding, and we're steadily, where we can, to manage rates, it takes whatever budget we can to start working towards that. We know it's great in a lot of ways, because the bad part of undergrounding, I'm going to just share the bad part, it doesn't fix everything. You don't have the weather, but if you have lightning strikes, believe it or not, is a big issue to damage underground fiber, or people digging in, it takes a lot longer to restore. So, you know, you're underground, I can send a troubleshooter, we call them, you know, down through there, and they can see pretty quick, get in the air, and actually make the repair and get you back in power pretty fast. Underground, we don't know where it's at. So we go between the 2 junction points, and we start sending pulse through there to try to understand about where it's at. Then we start digging until we sort of find it, or we have to replace all of it. It takes a long time. So managing expectations, just going underground doesn't necessarily make everything a lot better. You won't have some of the storm, but if you do have some, it is considerably longer to restore.
Understood. In
But-
this instance, it was wind, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have an issue with that with my underburied line.
No,
Okay.
no.
And that's what we have on that valley coming down.
Yeah.
We got some major wind, so.
And if
just curious,
if
thank
it
you.
hits our radar on the reliability, then you're gonna fall under, you know, what we're trying to get done, you know, with our budget there.
How do
So,
we find that out? Who do I speak with?
we do every day, if you can, any of the people that actually looks very professional in their great blue shirts and the name tags, get them your information, and we'll take a look at exactly where you're at and where that falls on that, and we can start having a conversation of when we think that we'll be in there, either through age of the equipment or through hitting that reliability metric. And as we get funding, you know, we do more of it, so, yeah. What
And
else?
as you have those questions, you can either shoot me an email or call or get right with, you know, there's so many ways to get, much quicker information than I assumed even 8 weeks ago, so, you know, just reach out.
And we do, and we have a great, you know, utility board that does take their jobs very, very seriously. And, you know, I know Michelle is very passionate about this district as well, and I'm passionate about supporting her in her job. So either way, we will 100% support you. But I don't want to take the whole stage today, because this is your party, so I want to turn it over for any questions, Michelle, and to start wrapping it up. And we'll stay around a few minutes if you got questions that didn't get answered.
Just one quick comment. I don't know if this will spur any questions, but I found out yesterday, I didn't realize that you have a section of Pleasant Valley Park to your eye. I didn't realize that. I thought it was all in my district, and
It's right on that
some,
line of 30.
yes,
Yeah.
some of the, I still can't 100% get every single little piece of the district, because it does such a weird little, I'm sure every council person feels it.
The city council website, there is a, you have to find it, there's a place where there's a map. You can type any address in the city in there, and you can find out who's my city council representative. And sometimes, honestly, that's why we have to figure it out, because one side of the road is in District 3, the other side of the road is in District 1, or even like bubbles up and takes a few homes and puts it into the other one. So there is a way, if you have a friend, and they're like, I don't know what district I'm in, if they go to the city council website, click on, you know, districting or something like that. If you really want to know, see me after this, I'll give you the exact link for it. And you can find out any home in the city. To address that.
Yeah, just, and that is a good way, because a lot of times, as Dave just said, sometimes we don't know that exact,
Right.
you know, difference of where my district touches Fillmore for just a brief period and then plat from just a brief
Yeah.
period, but it's yeah.
Where that really helps out is when you get like an angry constituent sends you an email, you
Then-
don't know who they, like whose district are they in, and you start hoping, you type
He,
in
he
your message.
loves to just send them to me.
Yeah,
No, and we, the neat thing is that we really do all help each other a lot. How can if we don't know what our own district is, how can we expect constituents sometimes? And so I oftentimes will get an email forwarded from someone on council. It says that, I think these folks think that I'm their council person. I'm not, I'm happy to help, here, and so please, so, yeah. So we really are all working together, and I guess I just want to assure you all that we take so seriously those utilities board meetings as well as the council meetings. And there are a lot of questions asked, much probably to the dismay sometimes of Travis, who just wishes one thing could, because we're 9 people, we have differences of opinion, that's good. We need to be, questioning things. And the water ordinance, we're just now starting to hear from a utilities perspective if it qualifies to be considered with an intention of an annexation.
Right.
And so sometimes we have these really long conversations about things that may or may not even ever bear fruit. But the communication factor is so important, and we really need you all, and I think Travis needs us and city council to always be trying to find out the truth to the best of all of our ability and passing that on to people, because it is hard, and there are a lot of people that are worried. What does this mean? Why are we annexing things? Why are we even talking about it? Why would we do this in these conditions? And it's a lot. You just need to know more. And I'm just real quick going to ask Travis before I forget. Do the citizens ever get an opportunity, I hope I'm not opening up a can of worms, to go on tours? They do? Because these guys offer the most incredible tours, and I'm showing you that I'm really in geek. I didn't know I was a utilities geek until 8 weeks ago, but I am, and I actually am. I'm that person at 9 o'clock at night that reads all the information. But they get invited to go on these tours, and I'm wondering if the citizens get an opportunity to do those things, because some of them might.
yeah, we have an outreach group, so if you're interested, if you're part of the group that we get there, we can definitely get that information as well. That you contact them, and it's usually Jane, I don't know if it's changed or not, but we do have somebody to reach out to. And we try to do groups instead of just like the one-offs, just because we usually pull employees from their job, to give the tour, so we try to maximize that. But if you're like part of a group or a neighbor, it's like, hey, we'd like to get, a group of people together to take a look at something, reach out, we're more than happy. I mean, it's your assets, we definitely take a look, so.
We can do that.
Yeah, so we will get you the right, but yeah, you're spot on.
Yeah, and this is, of course, primarily utilities focused, but I would encourage you, if you have interest in, understanding public works. We just attended, you were there, Dave, yeah, the Public Works Academy Citizen Day, and it was, again, nerd talk. I didn't know that I was ever would be so enthralled with all of the things that we learned that day, but it was fascinating, and there's so many of the major departments that do those things for not just city council, but for citizens, and I love that. And I also realize that maybe we could do a better job as a city letting you all know that. And I'm certainly open to solutions and ideas, because I don't have all the answers. I want to solve all the problems of the world today, and I know I'm not going to be able to do that, but that's usually how I start and end every day. So.
By noon and noon.
Well, I always think I do. I think, okay, today's the day.
You've got another 45 minutes of daylight.
I know. I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. Hopefully, at least one time before.
Well, there's a lot, and it's hard.
It is a lot, but there's so many things that are so important.
Right.
But to me, none more important than hearing from all of you. That is my most favorite part, even when it's an angry email or call, and I get some of them, and do I like getting an angry email? No. But I really appreciate people reaching out, and I am so excited by the level of community engagement. I don't know how much everyone teases that I probably have the district that gets the most feedback, which I am happy about, and if they think I'm crazy, I probably should not be happy about it. But
Our two, the west side of the city, have a lot of citizens who pay attention to what's going on. Like the citizens in Mountain Shadows, they will never be unplugged from the city again because their neighborhood started to burn. And that makes them, every one of them now has a whole different perspective on how important fire mitigation and other things are. And folks that live in this part of town also are plugged in. It's really the ones, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just that the ones out east, like Mike O'Malley's district, he gets very few emails from constituents. They're doing their thing and they just aren't interested so much. This is a generalization, but not like District 3, District 1, and then Nancy Hengens, the old North End, that part of the city. Those folks are all paying attention also.
and I think just very invested, and I'm not saying that it isn't beautiful out east, it is, but there's a different way, I think, that we all that live in these sections of town appreciate the beauty and want to see it continue. But I would just encourage any of you to reach out anytime. I'd be happy to meet with you, talk with you on the phone, whatever. And it can be as simple as day one. I'm not making this up. I got a message from Tom Strand, who just left council. He's in my district, and this is true. He was partly messing with me, but partly not, because his wife was mad at him. Someone had left a shopping cart in his front yard, and he said, "So, Miss Talarico, I'm going to give you a chance to do the right thing." Well, I really, other than, I'm not going to be able to call King Supers, and I'm not going to be able to say, "Okay, would you like me to come pick it up and put it in one of my vans?" What would you, anyway, that's a funny example, but, if something's bothering you, it's bothering you. There are people that have really bad drainage problems in their alleys in the old North End, and all kinds of different things. And I just have been personally grateful to all of the people in the city who have been so responsive to me. And I don't know if they see my call and they go, "Oh, it's her again." I hope not, because they're always nice on the other end. But time will tell. But any other questions that I can answer or comments?
Really high level.
Yes.
So can you give me the boundaries of your district?
Yes. Not 100% specifically, unless I had a map right in front of me, truly. It goes off. Memorial Park and Hillside Community Center are connected in a portion of Platt, but nothing south of the Hillside Community Center, right? And I believe that it becomes Yolanda's district at the very next street after the Hillside Community Center. Like, we kind of butt up against each other there too. It goes all the way through all of downtown, except not the old North End. It cuts off right in the middle of Monument Valley Creek, to be honest. Look, a lot of people like to say west of the highway is where it cuts off, but really, if you look at the boundaries, it's right there. And it goes over into Pleasant Valley until it butts up against your district. And it goes all the way down to Cheyenne Mountain State Park, doesn't include the state park, and all the way down to Fort Carson, doesn't include Fort Carson, but all of the homes down there in the Broadmoor Bluffs area, and I'm trying to think of what that area is, off of Cheyenne Mountain Boulevard and the Natucci area. There's a section there that's included.
For my purposes, you answered it, thank you.
Yeah. I was probably trying to figure it out also for myself, because I've started to drive it about 10 times, and then something comes up, and, but.
Thanks.
Sir, you had a question, I think?
This happened before you were born, I'm sure.
I was born in '64.
I remember going to a Rotary meeting decades ago, Mayor Isaac, sadly deceased, stood up and said these words: "You have to remember that in Colorado Springs, water runs uphill to muddy." I never knew what he meant exactly, but I'm beginning to learn. Uphill to muddy.
I've never heard that one.
Well, that's what he said.
Yeah.
And check it out in hell or wherever it is.
I remember Bob Isaac, was that in the 80s that Bob was our, I'm really
It was,
dating some of us.
the meeting was in the 80s,
Okay.
possibly 90s.
Well, the other water saying, Jeff, is that in Colorado, whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting.
Yep.
Let that guy do it on the deliberations.
Well, and you know what, it does, we really deliberate, and I guess I would just like
Well,
you all to know.
It's sort of tried, but it's quite the achievement. Well, this stuff takes brains and money, make it all happen.
It definitely does, and it's amazing to have all of the experts, but then when things come back up to the dais, it's important that those of us, we may not be utilities experts, but we're charged with protecting all of our citizens and making sure that we're making smart decisions, so we have to then hash it out, sometimes in a longer time period than others, and then vote to the best of our ability, to the oath that we took to, protect and serve the citizens of the city, so. But I appreciate everybody, and again, please feel free to call. I'd be happy to have coffee with you, a conversation, whatever. Because I think the only way we really get things done is by communicating, and you are all the biggest piece of this puzzle that we call Colorado Springs, and so let's start working together.
And for my part, and I think everybody, thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah,
And putting it in the communities and giving a chance for people that live in this area to come and just have interaction. It's very much appreciated.
I learned a lot, and it's valuable to me, it makes me more interested in learning more. So I think, just start something. You guys all have day jobs and came here anyway, and, I was just laying around in my patio reading books.
And so after this little meeting, you might have a different sense of, oh, okay, I met that CEO of CSU, he's not a bad guy. And we talked to those two council people and board people, and they seem normal, they seem pretty reasonable.
I didn't go that far.
One of them does, one of them you're not sure about. But city council here is still kind of like small town city council in a way. Every meeting, and we meet the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month for the regular session. Citizens, we have a part called citizen comment. And any citizen can sign up when you get there, you don't even have to do it in advance, and stand up and talk to city council about whatever the issue is you're concerned about, or it can be homelessness, it can be water, it can be this street hasn't been taken care of, whatever that is, for 3 minutes. And sometimes that's how we find out about things, and that has a big impact, and then we push to get it taken care of. So that's an opportunity where, kind of like this, you can really have an impact on city government. We want to learn that stuff, we really do. And so that's another way you get to talk to all 9 of us. The chief of staff or the mayor is there. Travis is probably there that day. And you can come in there and express your concern, or you can praise whatever that is, not necessarily us, but hey, the police did this for me, and I just want everybody to know that. So hopefully it's just something else that makes you realize Colorado Springs. This is what I see too with citizens, is once they actually meet the public works folks that come out to their house and take care of something, or they meet CSU people, we almost always get great reviews on folks who work for the city or work for CSU. And I know Michelle, she kind of already said this, and I was the same way. When I came on council and interacted with our staff in the city, we really have good people here that work for you in the city and utilities. So that's all for me.
when I go home at night, I say to my family all the time, they laugh at me now, everybody really cares. And I know that sounds corny and hokey, and I am a glasses half full person, but that has been my experience so far, and I would love for it to be your experience. So if I can plug you into anybody anytime, let me know.
Well, we'll make sure we get the word that everything we've learned here, we'll tell people.
Well, we so appreciate that, and this was all utilities. They reached out to me and said, we'd love to support you in your first town hall, and I'm sure a lot of your folks have questions on utilities, and of course we all do. And so thank you to everybody with utilities for doing all of this, and Christian for putting up with my silly questions. I own a catering company, so here was my question to Christian last week. What are we gonna do about snacks and drinks? And he said, well, that's not something we usually do. And of course, I was worried about that.
One introduction, my right-hand person here, Miss Summer Meese is the Chief Operations Officer. So she took the heat for me, one of the meetings before it covered for me in the evening time, so I took it today. But she's really spearheading a lot of stuff going on at Drake, so that's why she's here tonight. If you have any detailed questions of that site, or to dig in a little bit more on generation, please, she's more than happy to answer as well. So.
She's crazy smart. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.